A week after my father's tragic and accidental death, I received a letter that caught me completely off guard. Inside the envelope were 6 keys and a brief note instructing me to find a safe deposit box and simply open the door. The note felt like a riddle, and as I used the keys to unlock 6 different locations, the truth I uncovered left me shocked and unsettled. It was a horrifying revelation that I could hardly comprehend, but it ignited a burning desire for revenge, particularly against one person. Determined to uncover the full extent of the story, I set out on a mission that would change everything. My name is Lisa Watson, and I'm 45 years old. My father was the president of a welfare organization, and my mother passed away when I was a baby. I have no memories of her except for a custom-made necklace that once formed a heart shape when paired with hers. Sadly, her necklace was lost long ago, and I've only kept the one my father gave me. As an only child, I married Michael, one of my father's trusted employees. 2 decades ago, he was well-liked and respected, and people assumed that our marriage would secure the future of my father's company. I, on the other hand, was content being a homemaker, with a passion for solving puzzles, something my father and I enjoyed together. Although I had a comfortable life, my marriage was far from perfect. Michael was loving before our wedding, but afterward, his attitude shifted dramatically. "Welcome home, I'll make dinner," I would say, only to be met with, "I don't mean anything. I'm going to bed." When I voiced my loneliness, he'd respond, "You're acting all cute, and it's disgusting. I hate that." Our discussions about starting a family went nowhere, and as the years passed, we remained childless. By the time I reached 40, I had given up on the idea of having children. 3 years ago, Michael began coming home late, reeking of perfume. One day, I couldn't hold back any longer and confronted him. "Are you cheating on me?" I asked. His response was defensive. "I just go to hostess clubs for work. It's part of the job, don't complain." When I pressed him further, he struck me, his eyes bloodshot with rage. "You shouldn't meddle in my business, you hear me?" At that moment, I felt trapped. With no work experience of my own, I didn't have the power to speak out, so I remained silent. But my father had often told me, "You can build trust with business partners without needing hostesses or alcohol." This made me more suspicious of Michael's behavior, so I confided in James, my father's close associate. James, a year younger than me, was like a comforting younger brother. He was always attentive to my concerns, but kept a respectful distance. He held a high position in my father's company and occasionally visited our home for work matters. One day, I asked him, "James, what do you think about business partners going to hostess clubs?" He replied thoughtfully, "Times change, and so do approaches to work." "True, thank you, I feel better now," I said, relieved. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask," James assured me. His calm demeanor helped me let go of my worries for the time being, but everything changed soon after. A month ago, after Michael left for a business trip, I received a call from the police. My father had died in an accident. When I arrived, he looked peaceful, as if he were just asleep. The police came with Michael, James, and some company executives. "Why did this happen? Please, tell me everything," I asked through tears. The investigating officer explained that my father had jumped off a cliff. Traces of sleeping pills were found in his system, and his car was found nearby, abandoned. Inside the car, they discovered a typed suicide note stating, "I'm exhausted," and left the company presidency to Michael. Although the note wasn't handwritten, James explained that my father often typed memos, so it wasn't unusual. The police theorized that my father had taken sleeping pills before jumping. James wasn't present when it happened, and there were no witnesses. "I'm so sorry," James said, tears welling in his eyes. Even Michael, who was usually cold, offered a rare show of comfort. Afterward, my husband assumed the role of president, and James smoothly became his right-hand man. Meanwhile, I dealt with family matters. Though surrounded by people, I felt an overwhelming loneliness. Having lost both parents, I wished I had a sibling. A week later, I received an unexpected letter. It contained 6 keys and a slip of paper with the location of a safe deposit box. The note simply said, "Open all the doors. Only then will you uncover the truth." Remembering my father's love for puzzles, I felt a flicker of intrigue amidst my grief. Over the following days, between household chores, I visited the 6 different safe deposit boxes. What I found was beyond anything I could have imagined. Could this really be happening? I gasped as the truth came to light. The revelation chilled me to the bone, and I couldn't stop the tears that followed, but I knew what I had to do. 1 month after my father's funeral, Michael came home early and offered me wine, something he had never done before. What's the occasion? I asked, surprised. Actually, James mentioned that you like wine, so I brought this for you, he said, as he handed me the bottle. Really? I replied, puzzled. I had discussed my love of wine with James in the past, so it made sense, but I still found it odd. James sure knows a lot about us, I remarked. Michael poured the wine and left to finish some work. I stayed in the living room, sipping from the glass, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. An hour later, Michael returned and studied my face intently. Has anything changed? He asked. Not really. Is it because I'm still awake? He asked, confused. I smiled inwardly, knowing exactly what he had planned. Enough with the act. You drugged the wine with sleeping pills, intending to drive me somewhere and throw me off a cliff, just like my father. Michael's expression hardened, but I wasn't done yet. Actually, something was sent to me recently. I spread out the letter and the 6 keys on the table. As I revealed the contents of the letters, they formed a complete sentence. The one who killed the president is Michael Watson. Danger is also approaching you. Michael's eyes widened in shock as I revealed the truth, but before he could respond, James, who had been waiting nearby, stepped forward. It was me who sent the letters, James said calmly. Earlier, when I went to the kitchen, I had secretly messaged James to wait for the right moment. I had already suspected foul play in my father's death, so I began my own investigation. You were in the president's office with a woman the day after my father died, James revealed. I overheard your conversation. That's when I figured out what happened. James explained that Michael had orchestrated my father's death in order to take control of the company. Michael tried to look away, but the truth was out. You killed my father for the presidency? I asked, grabbing his shoulders. And you plan to do the same to me for the inheritance? Michael tried to deny it, but the truth was undeniable. James had no concrete evidence yet, but he had sent me the letters to give me a chance to uncover the truth. Despite Michael's protests, I couldn't remain silent any longer. Taking a deep breath, I prepared to reveal the final piece of the story. Actually, I've got more to tell you, I said, and the truth, once hidden, was finally laid bare. Once, my father fell deeply in love with my mother, who had grown up in foster care, but my father's strict parents disapproved of their relationship, making their marriage a challenging battle. Despite the opposition, they went ahead with their union, and I was born. What does this all mean now? Just hear me out, my husband interrupted. James spoke up as well. My husband, looking serious, reluctantly sat down beside me. When my father went on a business trip, his strict parents took matters into their own hands, filing for divorce without his consent, and they forced my mother to leave the house. But I thought she was dead? Michael asked, confused. That was a lie they created to cover up the family's secret, I said. My mother, under pressure from my father's parents, had tearfully stepped away after they told her, "A woman like you can't be the wife of a future president, you'd ruin our family's image." To make things worse, I, at just 1.5 years old, was torn away from my mother, all for one selfish reason. My father needed a male heir to secure the family's future. My father was told a lie, "Your wife left you after an affair," but that wasn't the truth. Now it all makes sense, my husband muttered. I had no idea about your father's history. This secret had been carefully guarded by a few select relatives. In fact, I had only recently learned about it myself. Now, here's the most important part. What more could there be? Michael interrupted, raising his voice in frustration. Just get to the point. Ignoring his impatience, I turned my attention to James. As it turns out, my mother was already pregnant with another child back then. That child is sitting right next to you. James, my husband said, stunned. So, your siblings? James nodded in silence. After my mother was cast aside, her health deteriorated, and she remained bedridden. My father, devastated by the loss of the woman he loved, never remarried and spent years searching for her. 30 years later, he found her in a dilapidated apartment, critically ill. They briefly reunited before she passed away. It was then that James and his father learned the truth for the first time. James was my father's son, and my father finally realized he had a son. My mother always wanted me to do something meaningful, so I ended up in the welfare sector. Joining the company was a coincidence, but maybe our mother had a hand in bringing us together, I explained. James, tears in his eyes, continued, my father once considered promoting me to a high position and publicly acknowledging our relationship, but I turned it down. I wanted to succeed on my own terms, and I knew revealing this would cause a stir. Mom wouldn't have wanted that. Though James rejected the offer, His skills earned him the trust of the president, and he rose to power without any nepotism. The truth had finally come out. Every month, on my mother's Memorial Day, the president would visit my home to share memories of her. He was supposed to come the day before his tragic accident, right? Yes, but for some reason, he didn't show up. That was strange, I said, confirming. James explained that my father always called when plans changed, but this time, he didn't. After some investigation, James uncovered the unsettling truth: Michael was involved. That's why he sent me that CTIC letter. It's nonsense. Where's the proof that he's the president's son? Who would believe such a ridiculous story? Michael exploded, furious at both of us. I didn't take James' account at face value, but I had already seen undeniable evidence of our sibling relationship. Hey, could you show it? I asked. James pulled out a necklace, one that had been lost for years, and carefully placed it next to mine. Together, they formed a heart. This was the custom piece my parents had made. Is this a coincidence? Doesn't this prove James is my brother? Michael, still defiant, said, even if it does, people lie. There's no guarantee. If you're still doubting, we can take a DNA test with our father, I said, pointing out that there were plenty of heirlooms from my father that could be used for testing. My confidence seemed to unsettle Michael, who then crumpled a piece of paper with a coded message. Why go to such lengths? I asked. To make sure even if you found it, you wouldn't understand it right away, James explained. He had realized that while Michael was skilled at work, he often delegated uncomfortable tasks to others. James assumed Michael would hand the letter off to someone else, but knowing my love for puzzles, he thought I'd solve it. This was a trick my father had planned during his life. James chuckled. Pretty clever, right? My dad always had interesting ideas, I added, remembering how he'd once said he hoped I'd solve a mystery like this. With all of this, James and I uncovered Michael's crime. We carefully searched his room and found evidence that he had forged a suicide note on his computer. James also traced Michael's motorcycle trip history, which showed a one-way journey from the accident site back to his house. You loaded the motorcycle into the car, pushed my father off the cliff, and used the bike to return home, I said, recalling the day before my father's death. Michael had claimed to be on a business trip, but according to James, no such task existed. Your marriage to me was probably just about money and status, I said coldly. On the day Michael secretly brought his mistress into my father's office, James had followed her discreetly. She was a karaoke hostess, and when James infiltrated the club, she freely admitted the truth. Why hurt my dad? I couldn't wait until he died. Despite Michael's attempts to retire, my father refused. James revealed that Michael couldn't wait for him to die and had taken matters into his own hands. His selfishness enraged me. We'll go to the police and ask them to reopen the case, I said firmly. But you haven't reported it yet. Could it be because you still care about me? Michael shot back, trying to avoid responsibility. Even at this point, James, equally stunned, stayed silent. You could have taken this to the police, James pointed out. I wanted to take control and get justice for Dad, I admitted. Finally, Michael seemed to realize the gravity of the situation. Tearfully, he apologized, his face a mess of tears and snot. He trembled as he looked at me, but neither I nor James had any intention of forgiving him. You've committed a serious crime, but please, forgive me, he begged. Prepare for despair, I replied coldly. With James' help, I handed Michael over to the authorities. In an interrogation, Michael confessed to murdering my father. Thanks to the intervention of a lawyer, our divorce was finalized, and $20,000 was compensated from his savings. Reports say Michael, now imprisoned, is a mere shell of the man he once was. The mistress, who knew about his marriage, demanded $110,000 in alimony. Meanwhile, James, now recognized as the president's biological son, has taken over the role of company president. His past accomplishments have been rightfully acknowledged. I'll be assisting with company administration from now on, James said. My brother and I will work together to preserve the legacy our father left us. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Stay shocked.